maybe the first half of this paragraph until when?
These events took place at La Colorada Ranch, in the southern part of the township of Junin, during the last days of March 1928. The protagonist was a medical student named Balthazar Espinosa. We may describe him for now as one of the common run of young men from Buenos Aires with nothing more noteworthy about him than an almost unlimited kindness and a capacity for public speaking that had earned him several prizes at the English school in Ramos Mejia. He did not like arguing and preferred having his listener rather than himself in the right. Although he was fascinated by the probabilities of change in any game he played, he was a bad player because it gave him no pleasure to win.
Okay.
His wide intelligence.
Let's pause there. Of chance, the probabilities of chance.
Chance.
Good. It gave him no pleasure to win. I think you sounded really good. That sounded great. And let's have Heidi. Can you read the next half of the paragraph?
Mm-hmm. His wide intelligence was undirected. At the age of 33, he still had not qualified for graduation in the subject to which he was most drawn. His father, who was a free thinker, like all the gentlemen of his day, had introduced him to the lessons of Herbert Spencer. But his mother, before leaving on a trip for Montevideo, once asked him to say the Lord's Prayer and make the sign of the cross every night.
Good.
Through the years, he had never promised.
Through the years, he had never gone back on that promise.
Through the years, he had never gone back on that promise.
Okay, good. And Simone, can you read, I guess, the next paragraph?
Yes. Espinosa was not lacking spirit. One day, with more indifference than anger, he had exchanged 2 or 3 punches with a group of fellow students who were trying to force him to take part in the university demonstration. Owing to an acquiescence nature, he was full of opinions or habits of mind that were questionable. Argentina mattered less to him than a fear that in other parts of the world people might think of us as Indians. Until
just read the whole paragraph.
Oh, sorry. Okay. He worshipped France but despised the French. He thought little of Americans but approved the fact that there were tall buildings like theirs in Buenos Aires. He believed that gauchos of the plains to be better riders than those of hill or mountain country. When his cousin Daniel invited him to spend the summer months out at La Colorada, he said yes at once, not because he was really fond of the country, but more out of his natural complacency, and also because it was easier to say yes than to dream up reasons for saying no.
Complacency.
Complacency.
Good. Okay. Does anybody know what a gaucho is? I know it. Amp does. Amp, what's a gaucho? Amp?
The native people from Argentina.
Yeah.
Gauchos.
Like
Gauchos People from Brazil, actually. From the south of Brazil, they are called gaúchos, but
Really? I didn't know that.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
me neither.
So yeah, I
I
mean,
live
it's
next to Argentina, actually.
also kind of like a cowboy too. Um, yeah, so just the people who live there, the native people. Um, but yeah, there's a kind of like a sense of cowboys too. Um, and any other questions here? All right. And sorry,
Complacency.
if somebody's complacent, they just kind of do what other people tell them. So they don't really have much backbone. They kind of just do whatever. He's not completely complacent. Um, so but he's pretty complacent. I mean, even when he fights, it's more with indifference than anger. So he's not like a really angry person, but um,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mm.
And okay, any
Uh,
other questions?
yes, dream up is like makeup.
Yeah, it's like think of or think up. Mhm.
Thanks.
Okay, and let's have Amp. Can you read the next two paragraphs?
The ranch's main house was big and slightly run down. The quarters of the foreman, whose name was Gutter, were close by. The Gutters were three: the father, an unusually uncouth son, and a daughter of uncertain paternity. They were tall, strong, and bony, and had hair that was on the reddish side and faces that showed traces of Indian blood. They were barely articulate. The foreman's wife had died years before.
Okay.
There in the country, Espinosa began learning things he never knew, or even suspected. For example, that you do not gallop a horse when approaching settlements, and that you never go out riding except for some special purpose. In time, he was to come to tell the birds apart by their calls.
Okay. And so the first one was the ranches.
The branches.
Okay. And uncouth.
Uncouth.
Yeah. What was the other? Bony
Bony.
and the foremans.
The foreman. No, foremans.
Foremans. Good.
Formants.
Yeah. Um, and no, Heidi, it's not intentional at all. It just kind of happened. I'm really sorry about it. But yeah, it's definitely not intentional. Just, yeah, but definitely apologize. Any questions about that?
Uncouth.
Okay, uncouth is like uncultured, kind of like rude.
Hmm. And the last sentence.
There, he was
In
come. Okay.
time, he was.
So like after a period of time, he was able to tell the birds apart by their calls. So just by listening to them.
Oh, okay. Okay. Mhm.
Okay. And any other questions? Okay. Julieta, can you read the next little paragraph?
After a few days, Daniel had to leave for Buenos Aires to close a deal on some cattle. At most, this bit of business might take him a week. Espinosa, who was already somewhat weary of hearing about his cousin's incessant luck with women and his tireless interest in the minute details of men's fashion, preferred staying on at the ranch with his textbooks. But the heat was unbearable, and even the night brought no relief. One morning at daybreak, thunder woke him. Outside the wind was rocking the Australian pines. Listening to the first heavy drops of rain, Espinosa thanked God. All at once cold air rolled in. That afternoon the Salado overflowed its banks.
Yeah, which should be a river. The banks are like the
Mm,
borders of the river. Okay. Minute. The
minute.
minute details of men's fashion. And then
Minute.
his incessant luck with women.
Incessant luck with women.
Good. Um, awesome. Any questions here? Okay. So we have Daniel and we have his cousin, Espinosa, who is kind of the main character in the story. Espinosa is from the city. He's really complacent. We also have the family, the Gutres. Um, yeah, and hopefully that makes sense. No other questions here? Okay.
Amias, the family, they were the family of who? Daniel?
Yeah, they're the people who work on the ranch. That's the foremen. Um, so Daniel and Espinosa are living in the main house, and the foreman, like the person who runs the ranch, um, is Gutre, and they live close by.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just three of them.
Okay.
They were barely articulate, so like they couldn't speak very well. Um, okay. And Heidi, can you read the next part, maybe until Junin?
The next day, looking out over the flooded fields from the gallery of the main house, Barrister Espinosa thought that stock metaphor comparing the pampa to the sea was not altogether false. At least not that morning, though W.H. Hudson had remarked that the sea seemed wider because we view it from the ship's deck and not from the horse or from eye level.
And yeah, keep going until Junin.
The rain did not let up. The gutters helped or hindered by Espinosa. The town dweller rescued a good part of the livestock, but many animals were drowned. There were 4 roads leading to La Colorada. All of them were underwater. On the third day, when a leak threatened the foreman's house, Espinosa gave the gutterers a room near the tool shed at the back of the main house. This drew them all closer. They ate together in the big dinner room. Conversation turned out to the difficult that gatherers who knew so much about country things were hard put to it explain them. One night, Espinosa asked them if people still remembered the Indian raids from back when the frontier command was located there in June.
Good. Okay, so let's look at W. So W.H. Hudson.
W. H. Hudson.
Yeah, W. And drowned.
Drowned.
Yeah, drowned. Threatened.
Threatened.
And dining.
Adam.
Dining. The dining room table.
Dining.
Or the dining room. Okay, that was good. So, any questions here? Okay. And so we've got, we've got this character who's from the city. It's like a town guy, and he's living in the country, and he invites the foreman and his family to live in the house because it's rained a lot and the foreman's house is flooded, but conversation is a little bit difficult. Um, okay, and let's have Simone. Can you read the next part until maybe Sombra?
They told him yes, but they would have given the same answer to a question about the beheading of Charles first. Spinoza recalled his father saying that almost every case of longevity that was cited in the country was really a case of bad memory or of a dim notion of dates. Gauchos are apt to be ignorant of the year of their birth, or of the name of the man who begot them. In the whole house there was apparently no other reading matter than a set of the Farm Journal, a handbook of veterinary medicine, a deluxe edition of the Uruguayan epic Tabaré, a story of shorthorn cattle in Argentina, a number of erotic or detective stories, and a recent novel called Dom Segundo Sombra.
Okay,
Okay.
nice. When we say Argentina in English, we say Argentina.
Why am I? I'm saying Spanish. I'm sorry.
Uh-huh. That's okay.
I'm
So,
confused.
and longevity.
Longevity.
Yeah. And veterinary.
And
Veterinary.
what is this word? Okay.
Veterinary.
Veterinary.
Good.
Veterinary
Okay.
medicine. Thank you.
Oh, also we say Charles the First.
Charles the First.
Yeah. Um, all right. Any questions here? Okay. Let's
Apt.
have apt, likely. So apt, if you're apt to do something, you're likely to do something. Um, so they told him yes to like this thing he asks them about history, but like they would have said yes to really any question, even if they didn't know it. Does that make sense?
No.
Yeah. Okay,
So
so go ahead.
no, uh, no,
Yeah.
nothing.
Okay. Yeah, so like, it's like if you ask somebody like a question that's really complicated, it's like, oh, maybe this somebody who doesn't read ever, like, oh, do you remember what they said in the Three Musketeers about friendship and courage? And they're just like, they never read, but they're like, oh yeah, I remember that part. You're like, you know, they don't. So these people just like they said yes to something that they might have known, but like they would have said
Mhm.
yes to anything. Um,
Okay.
yeah, and so there's nothing to read in the house. Let's have Amp. Can you read till the end of this paragraph?
Espinosa, trying in some way to bridge the inevitable after-dinner gap, read a couple of chapters of this novel to the Guthries, none of whom could read or write. Unfortunately, the foreman had been a cattle drover, and the doings of the hero, another cattle drover, failed to whet his interest. He said that the work was light, that drovers always traveled with a pack horse that carried everything they needed, and that had he not been a drover, he would never have seen such far-flung places as the Laguna de Gomez, the town of Bregado, and the spread of the Tines family in Chacabuco. There was a guitar in the kitchen. The ranch hands, before the time of the events I am describing, used to sit around in a circle. Someone would tune the instrument without ever getting around to playing it. This was known as a guitar fest.
Good. Which doesn't sound very fun at all. Um, anyways, that sounded really good. And does anybody have any questions here? Okay, so Espinosa is with these people who he's pretty uncomfortable with. He tries to read a story that they just think is boring. The foreman thinks is boring because he had already done it. So like it failed to whet his interest. Um, to wet something is to sharpen it. So we have like a whetting stone, which we use to sharpen knives. If you're whetting somebody's interest, you're like sharpening their interest in something. You're making them more interested. Hopefully that makes sense. A drover is just somebody who drives cattle, so like they lead them different places. Um, yeah, they just do boring things. They sit around and listen to somebody tune a guitar, somebody who doesn't even play it. Um, okay. And let's have Julieta. Can you read the next paragraph? Maybe.
Spinoza, mm,
Yeah. Go
who
ahead.
had grown a beard, began dawdling in front of the mirror to study his new face. And he smiled to think how, back in Buenos Aires, he would bore his friends by telling them the story of the Salado flood. Strangely enough, he missed places he never frequented and never would, a corner of Cabrera Street, on which there was a mailbox, one of the cement lions of a gateway on Jujuy Street, a few blocks from the Plaza de Lonce, an old barroom with a tiled floor, whose exact whereabout he was
Good.
unsure of. As for his brother and his father, they would already have learned from Daniel that he was isolated. Etymologically, the word was perfect by the floodwaters.
Good. Okay. Etymologically.
Etymologically,
And then flood.
flood,
And then gateway.
gateway.
Okay. And all right. Any other questions? No questions here? Um, so like the etymology of something is like the root of it. So like he was isolated etymologically. Um, he was like at the very root isolated. Like yeah, I'm not sure exactly what he's trying to say here. It might be better in Spanish. Um, but yeah, so he's just isolated by the floodwaters, and Daniel, the person who has left him alone on this farm, knows that he's isolated, that they can't get to him. Um, yeah, he's missing things he doesn't remember and won't ever see again. Yeah, I think that's good. Heidi, can you read the next paragraph?
Exploring the house still hemmed in by the watery west, Espinosa came across an English Bible. Among the blank pages in the end, the Guthries, such was their original name, had left a handwritten record of their lineage. They were native of Inverness, had reached the New World, no doubt as common laborers in the early part of the 19th century, and had intermarried with the Indians. The chronicle broke off sometimes during the 1870s when they no longer knew how to write. After a few generations, they had forgotten English. Their Spanish at the time Espinosa knew them gave them trouble. They lacked any religious faith, but they survived in the blood, like faint tracks, the rich fanaticism of the Calvinists and the superstitions of the Pampa Indian.
Last sentence?
Espinosa later told them of his find, but they barely took notice.
Good. Okay, let's look at lineage
Lineage.
and rigid.
Mm-hmm.
Rigid.
Yeah.
So, do the rigid fanaticism.
Rigid fanaticism.
Nice. Rigid fanaticism of the Calvinists and the superstitions of the Pampa Indian. Okay. And so he finds a Bible which has their lineage. It's like where they came from, their family history. This is where they came from, Inverness. They came to the New World as common laborers, intermarried with Indians. And then at some point, the family forgot how to write. They forgot English, and their Spanish is really bad. But they still have like this idea of like fanaticism of religion, of Calvinism, and kind of superstitions of the Indians. So they're two roots. Simone, can you read the next part?
Leafing through the volume, his fingers opened at the beginning of the Gospel according to Saint Mark, as an exercise in translation, and maybe to find out whether the Gruts understood any of it. Espinosa decided to begin reading them that text after the evening meal. It surprised him that they listened attentively, absorbed. Maybe the gold letters on the cover lent the book authority. It is still there in their blood, Espinosa thought. It also occurred to him that the generations of men, throughout recorded time, have always told and retold two stories: that of a lost ship which searches the Mediterranean seas for a dearly loved island, and that of a God who is crucified on Golgotha, remembering his lessons in elocution
Yeah, elocution.
From his school days in Ramos Mejia. Espinosa got to his feet when he came to the parables.
Yeah, and elocution.
Elocution.
Good. Authority.
Huh?
Authority.
Authority.
Evening.
Evening.
Evening. The evening.
Evening.
So just two syllables instead of three. We wouldn't say evening. We'd say evening.
Evening.
Okay. So he's reading them the Gospel according to Saint Mark. All right. Good. And any questions here about any of the words? Okay. And let's have Julieta, can you read the next paragraph?
The Gutters took to bolting their barbecued meat and their sardines so as not to delay the gospel. A pet lamb that the girl adorned with a small blue ribbon had injured itself on a strand of barbed wire. To stop the bleeding, the tree had wanted to apply a cobweb to the wound, but Spinoza with sun peels. The gratitude that this treatment awakened in them took him aback. Not trusting the Gutters at first, He'd hidden away in one of his books the 240 pesos he had brought with him. Now the owner of the place away, Espinosa took over and gave timid orders, which were immediately obeyed. The Gutres, as if lost without him, liked following him from room to room and along the gallery that ran around the house. While he read to them, he noticed that they were secretly stealing the crabs he had dropped on the table. One evening he caught them unawares, talking about him respectfully in very few words.
Okay, good. Sardines.
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 Sardines?
Yeah, sardines. And bolting is eating really quickly. Okay. So if you bolt something down, you're like doing it really quickly. You're eating it really quickly generally. All right. And now, the owner of the place away, Espinosa took over and gave timid orders. Can you repeat that one more time?
Now, the owner of the place away, Espinosa took over and gave timid orders, which were immediately obeyed. The
Good.
order were to the guards, right?
Yeah, the Gutres.
Guards, sorry.
No worries. I mean, it's a strange name because it's from English. They were the Guthries, is what we get here. And they now call themselves the Gutres. It's just like a Spanish version of the English name. Any other questions?
Yes.
Why is it?
Don't be sorry.
Sorry, Simona.
Crumbs.
Crumbs is like little pieces of food.
Ah, okay. Go ahead, Juliet.
My question was about why is he annoyed by their gratitude,
He's annoyed by their
or
gratitude?
strangely surprised? I don't know.
I mean, it's a little bit, he's taken aback by it. He's like, yeah, surprised by it. He's not expecting them to, because it's a normal thing for him. You know, the fact that they were so grateful that he'd given them the treatment was like, whoa. And so he's becoming kind of like in this situation where he's not quite comfortable, but he's also kind of pleased about. So like at first he didn't trust them, he hid the money, but now he's like the owner of the place. They're grateful to him. They seem to like him a lot, and he's like giving them orders now. At first timidly, but they're being obeyed. Yeah. Okay. Welcome back, Heidi. Oh, there she goes. Simone, can you read the next paragraph?
Having finished the Gospel according to St. Mark, he wanted to read another of the three Gospels that remained, but the father asked him to repeat the one he had just read, so that they could understand it better. Spinoza felt that they were like children, to whom repetition is more pleasing than variations of novelty. That night, this is not to be wondered at, he dreamed of the flood. The hammer blows of the building of the ark woke him up, and he thought that perhaps they were thunder. More?
Yeah, read the rest of the paragraph.
Okay. In fact, the rain, which had let up, started again. The cold was bitter. The Gutres had told him that the storm had damaged the roof of the tool shed, and that they would show it to him when the beams were fixed. No longer a stranger now, he was treated by them with special attention, almost to the point of spoiling him. None of them liked coffee, but for him there was always a small cup into which They heaped sugar.
Heaped.
Heaped sugar.
Okay, really good.
What is heaped sugars? Just like.
If you heap something, you're piling it.
Okay.
So a heap is a big pile, and so if you're heaping sugar, you're just piling it in. So he has a little cup of coffee with a lot of sugar in it.
Okay.
Yeah. And so he wakes up, he's like dreaming of the flood. He's reading the Bible all the time. Um, the hammer blows of the building of the ark woke him up. So he's dreaming of the Bible. He's imagining somebody's building the ark, but what's really happening is like there are actual hammer blows that wake him up. And the Gutres tell him that they're trying to fix the roof of the tool shed, which has been damaged. The beams are damaged, and they're fixing them now. And that's where the noise is coming from, the hammering is coming from. And also, they're treating him really well, almost like spoiling him. Does that make sense? Any other questions here?
That's okay.
Okay. This is a really important thing. That night, this is not to be wondered at. He dreamed of the flood, the hammer blows of the building of the ark woke him up. So that's a crucial next part. Heidi, welcome back. How's it going?
My connection was very bad.
It's okay. Yeah, I'm glad you're back. Can you read from the new storm till the end of that paragraph?
The new storm had broken out Tuesday, Thursday night. Espinosa was awakened by the soft knock at his door, which just in case he always kept locked. He got out of bed and opened it. There was a girl. In the dark, he could hardly make her out, but by her footsteps, he could tell she was barefoot, and moments later, in bed, that she must have come all the way from the other end of the house naked. She did not embrace him or speak a single word. She lay beside him, trembling. It was the first time she had known the man. When she left, she did not kiss him. Espinosa realized that he didn't even know her name. For some reason that he did not want to pry into, he made up his mind that upon returning to Buenos Aires, he would tell no one about what had taken place.
Okay, good. Any questions here? Okay, so there's a new storm. It's Thursday night. Espinosa wakes up. There's the girl who comes and she's naked and she gets in his bed and yeah, they sleep together and it's weird. He doesn't know their name. It's like he doesn't want to even tell anybody about this. He feels really weird about it. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Oh, it's getting a little bit weird. Simona, can you read until again?
Okay. The next day began like the previous ones, except that the father spoke to Espinosa and asked him if Christ had let himself be killed so as to save all other men on earth. Espinosa, who was a free thinker but who felt committed to what he had read to the Guthries, answered, "Yes, to save everyone from hell." Guthrie then asked, "What's hell?" "A place under the ground where souls burn and burn." "And the Roman soldiers who hammered in the nails, were they saved too?" "Yes," said Spinoza, whose theology was rather dim. All along he was afraid that the foreman might ask him about what had gone on the night before with his daughter. After lunch they asked him to read the last chapters over again.
Good. Okay, any questions here?
No.
You don't know?
No, I was just thinking that the girl was the foreman daughter, so I was right.
Yeah, the girl's a foreman's daughter. Um,
I
okay.
think he knew what was going on,
I think he knew too.
the dad.
Yeah, and Juliet, Heidi, can you read the rest of the sentence or the rest of the story?
Espinosa slept a long nap that afternoon. It was a light sleep, disturbed by persistent hammering. Espinosa hammering and by a vague uh, premonition. Toward evening, he got up and went out onto the gallery. He said, as if thinking aloud, the waters have dropped. It won't be long now. It won't be long now. Gato repeated like an echo. The three had been following him, bowing their knees to the stone pavement. They asked his blessing. Then they mocked at him, spat on him, and shoved him toward the back part of the house. The girl wept. Espinosa understood what awaited him on the other side of the door. When they opened it, he saw a patch of sky. A bird sang out. The goldfish, he thought. The shed was without a roof. They had pulled down the beams to make the cross.
Good. Okay. And can you repeat bowing?
Mm,
Bowing.
pardon.
Bowing.
Bowing.
Yeah. Um, this is a little bit of a strange usage. Generally, bowing is when you bend at the waist in like a sign of respect for somebody. So you bow to somebody. But they're bowing their knees to the stone pavement. So they like get on their knees in this case. Make sense? Heidi? Do, do, do.
Uh, what is a spat on him?
When you spit, you take the saliva in your mouth and you project it onto somebody else.
Ah, spat the past. Okay.
Spat is the past tense of spit.
Good.
Mm. Okay. And what is going on?
Mm.
So yeah, what's happening here, Simone?
I'm trying to read again.
Right. Heidi, are you there?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Do you know what's happening?
I'm not sure. A girl was naked girl was with him in the night,
Mm-hmm.
and she dreamed flat again and again, and he was hammering the house. Even its dream, and
Um,
mhm.
so this isn't a dream anymore. So this is the next day, like the foreman's asking him about these sections in the Bible. Espinosa is kind of like trying to answer. He reads the chapters over. Then he falls asleep in the afternoon, and it was a light sleep, and he kept on hearing hammering,
Hammering.
and he heard premonitions. Like he had premonitions, so he kind of saw the future. Um,
And
yeah,
the guys were like making a cross on the roof.
yeah, they were making a cross. And not on the roof. They had taken the roof down to make a cross.
Ah,
So what are they going to do to Espinosa?
crucify him.
Yeah, they're going to
Okay.
crucify him. So Espinosa's got a beard. He's like reading in the Gospel of Mark, and they treat him as the
God.
person who's going to save them. Yeah, and they're going to crucify him, and they
Yes.
ask if they're going to be saved. Yeah. Does that kind of
Poor
make sense?
Espinosa.
What Espinosa? Yeah, he's all alone. Um, okay. Do you understand, Heidi? Heidi?
Yeah.
Um,
What are you asking?
do you understand the story? Are you like, do you get it? What
No,
happened?
I couldn't understand because I skipped several several parts.
Yeah, I think it was just right at the beginning. It was just that one paragraph. We were just talking about it. Um, so yeah, what happens is that Espinosa is stranded on the farm with
No, no,
the
it's okay.
Gutres.
No, it's not important for me.
All right. Okay. Um, all right. Well, we
So
could do
that's the
something else.
end.
Yeah, that's the end. So,
Oh, I
it's
wanted to read more.
oh yeah, sorry. But yeah, pretty simple. I mean, it's just like a kind of like a parable um
Interesting.
about yeah, religion. But kind of interesting. All right. I think at least we're good with this. I'm trying to think of a good short story, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. There's one that's maybe a little bit distasteful, but yeah, I don't know. Um,
Let's talk about the future.
talk about the future?
Yeah.